By summertime, all across America, lawns everywhere have bare spots, have brown spots, and generally feel crispy. In extreme heat, it can feel like everything is dying. So it's no surprise that so many people look to grass seed as the answer. Thing is, though, roughly 30 to 60 days later, almost everybody regrets that decision. Most people feel like they've wasted both time and money. It's not a bad idea to seed in the summer, though. I'm about ready to do it myself, and I'm positive that I'm going to have a great result. The problem is most people are lacking the information needed to successfully grow grass from seed during the summer. So I'd like to give you a crash course on the process right now. Subscribers to this channel are going to see my parkway strip bloom into a summer green throughout my summer videos this season. But in this video, I'm simply going to explain what I'm going to be doing there and why. Right, as most of you guys know, the only true thing that you need to get grass seed to germinate, or let's call it crack the outer shell, is moisture or water. If you've ever taken seeds and put them, wrapped them in a paper towel or something like that and put them in water, or just dunk them in water, they will germinate if that water is the correct temperature and you let them sit there for a few days. You also get a pretty good idea how long it takes seed to germinate based on the seed that you put in that water. An annual rye might pop and start putting out its first little tap root in about 2.5 to 3 days, and something like a Kentucky bluegrass might take quite a bit longer. Now, grass seed that germinates in just water, it can't root down into anything. Eventually it's just going to die. And that's why if you want your grass to actually take off and look good, you need to get that seed into dirt before the sprout pops. So all of that is a solid, ridiculous preamble to say this. During the summer, it is very hot and the sun beats down on the soil, and the soil is warm enough to get grass seed to sprout very quickly. But because it's hot and they're very long sunny days, everything dries out enormously fast. And if you put some grass seed down on dry soil and do nothing to it, it will never germinate. It needs the soil to root into, but it's never going to actually germinate unless it stays wet. So when we're talking about putting grass seed down in the summer, regardless if it's a cool season grass or a warm season grass, the number one factor involved is getting the seed to germinate as quick as possible. So what we can do is we can take our seed and dunk it in water, soak it, pre-soak it for 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 days, depending on what grass seed you're putting down. And while we're soaking it, we come out here and deeply water the bare dirt, the area that we're going to be putting the grass seed down on. And that's because if I put seed here and then sprinkle water on the seed will be wet and it'll be sitting on substantially dry soil. Like we might get like the upper centimeter wet, but it's going to dry out very, very quickly. If we can deeply saturate the soil under the seed, we're talking 3, 4, 5 inches of moisture in the soil itself before we put the seed down, and that means the soil is not going to dry out nearly as fast as it would if we put the seed down on dry soil and just sprinkled it multiple times per day. So the pre-soaking of that seed is one of the ninja tips to get your seed to germinate faster. We can control the moisture environment inside in a bucket or a cup. It depends. I mean, if you're just seeding like a small little spot, maybe you've got a dead spot in the lawn that's only like 20, 30, 40 square feet, you could do it in a cup. If you're seeding like a 5,000 square foot lawn, you're probably going to need a 5-gallon bucket. But you can control the temperature of the water and the duration that that seed stays wet in an enclosed environment while you prepare the soil itself. Moisture is not the only thing that we do to prepare the soil. Here on this lawn, I've applied I believe it's 3 rounds of glyphosate to this parkway strip over the course of the last 4 months or so. The green that you see here is pretty much just sedges that have come up over the past 30 to 40 days or so. There are a handful of other weeds in here, and if I really walk slowly, I can find some kikuyu grass that has somehow or other made it through 3 rounds of glyphosate. So far I don't see any, but I know that there are some, especially as I go this way. What I'm going to go ahead and do now is I'm going to go and hand pull as many of the large weeds that have come up here over the past 45 days or so. Just pull them out of the ground, and then I'm going to go ahead and blanket spray the whole area one more time with glyphosate, trying to kill off the remaining kikuyu grass that's there and any small weeds that I can't just easily grab and pluck out with my bare hand. And here's the trick that a lot of people don't understand is you can put down glyphosate right on top of seeds. So you could literally put grass seed on the ground and spray it with glyphosate, and it's not going to kill the seeds. Now, it's not really recommended, but it's not going to kill the seeds. Glyphosate is foliar absorbed, so a seed doesn't have any leaves, so it's not going to absorb the glyphosate and kill it. It's not a plant yet. And glyphosate has basically no soil activity, so if it goes down on bare dirt, and then a grass seedling 7 to 10 days later sprouts and the taproot goes down, it's not going to damage that plant because it's not mobile in the soil. It's not going to stay in the soil. So what I'm planning to do here is spray the glyphosate one more time to kill as much off as I can, because whatever weeds are there are going to absorb and translocate that glyphosate into the root systems to kill those plants off. I'm going to wait for that process to happen on as many weeds as I possibly can, and then I'm going to come in with a Maddock. A Maddock is a kind of looks like a pickaxe, but it's for kind of digging into the ground in a different sort of a way. I've got an entire video about how you level a small area of your lawn using a Maddock, which I'll link to in the description below. But I'm going to go ahead and take that Maddock and come to my parkway strip, and if I were to get down, I'm not going to do it because my knees hurt, but my parkway strip kind of humps up and over a little bit, and I've done a few things over the spring to flatten it ever so slightly, but there is still a little bit of a humping action. So after about 7 days, the glyphosate will have worked its way into anything green and alive that you see here and gone down into the roots. So then I can start digging into it with the Maddock. I'm going to leave this as a very flat area, as flat as I possibly can. I'm going to actually remove some of the dirt that's in here because there's more dirt here than I want. And that's going to leave me with a flat area that's already loosened up because I have manually processed the dirt. You could use just a regular garden hoe or a very hard-tined garden rake, or you can even do like a straight-up tiller. I don't really want to do a tiller because I don't want to dig so deep into the ground, but certainly you could do that. Over the course of those 7 days, everything is getting plenty of water so that the dirt itself is moist and damp fairly deep. And then at that 7th day mark, that's when I go to town using the Maddock on this to loosen the dirt up and level it. So at the end of day 7, possibly day 8, depending on how much stamina I have, I'm going to go ahead and drop my pre-soaked seed. Now, of course, I'm not going to pre-soak my seed for 7 to 8 days. I'm going to time it. For me, I'm going to be putting down a Kentucky bluegrass right there because it's a cool season grass, and ultimately I want to put a warm season grass there. There's a whole story behind that. The reason for that is I expect additional kikuyu grass and Bermuda grass to slowly come just out of nowhere into that lawn space over the course of the summer. It's very easy to kill off a very small amount of kikuyu grass and Bermuda grass out of cool season lawn using triclopyr, which I'll probably have to douse that area with, not douse, but you know what I mean, apply to that area in a couple months after the Kentucky bluegrass has established itself and hardened itself off to be able to resist herbicides. Because I live in a warm season climate, our winters don't get very cold. In theory, the Kentucky bluegrass will continue to stay green and growing all throughout the fall, all throughout the winter, and by springtime in next year, so that would be 2024, I'll pretty much only have a pure Kentucky bluegrass stand on the parkway strip, which I can then go ahead and start seeding Buffalograss into, overseeding Buffalograss into, and make the easy transition from Kentucky bluegrass to Buffalograss. This is a very not normal process that I'm doing. It's really not going to apply to very many people out there, but I find it pretty interesting, and many of you probably will as well. But we're still dealing with summertime temperatures that are very hot. So even though I'm pre-soaking the seed and I'm going to be sticking it onto a prepared seed bed that is adequately moist deep into the ground before the seed ever hits, I'm going to cover it up with peat moss, which is a moisture retaining organic layer. It's going to help prevent the seed from drying out during the summer heat. And then on top of that, I'm going to roll out a straw seeding blanket. There's lots of straw seeding blankets. If you go to garden supply stores, you can find them. I'm using a seeding blanket made by Ike's company. They're all very similar. The trick here is you want the blanket. I would not put just straight straw out there because you're never going to get it off the ground. The blanket is actually holds the straw together, so later on you can take it off the ground when you feel it's ready to take it off. Some of the straw will remain, but most of it will come up. Seeding blankets are also usually pure, so you're not going to find weed seeds in there. So if you just go off and just buy like a bale of straw or hay, you might actually be putting weed seeds onto the area, which you don't want to do. Basically, by covering this stuff up with peat moss and straw, we're going to be providing enough shade from the sun that once the grass seeds start sprouting and actually growing up through those light materials, moisture retaining and shade creating materials, the baby grass seed should be able to harden itself off despite the potentially scorching heat of the sun in the middle of the summer. And I'm starting this process here on July 6th. So I don't expect to actually put the grass seed down on the lawn until somewhere around the 14th of July. And then if the grass seed sprouts somewhere around the 16th of July, then that means we're already nearly a full month into summer. The days are still quite long and quite hot, but every single day, the length of day and the intensity of sun continues to decrease. As we push into August, it becomes easier and easier and easier to keep the baby grass seed alive. One of the biggest struggles with putting grass seed down in the summer is it's pretty easy to get the grass seed to germinate, but it's hard to keep it all alive by the time fall rolls around. So I'm going to keep that seeding blanket on the lawn for a good long time until temperatures drop a little bit, and then I'll pull the seeding blanket off and I'll be left with what I expect to be a dense stand of Kentucky bluegrass that is going to thrive throughout the fall. Considering the fact that the Kentucky bluegrass is expected in my scenario to sprout somewhere around the middle part of July, and that means somewhere around the middle to late part of September, it will be established and old enough to be able to accept an herbicidal application to kill off any weeds that come up and to kill off any of the warm season grasses that I don't want in the area, because those warm season grasses will have not gone dormant yet. Now, with all of that said, for most people, myself included, putting seed down going into the height of summer is a big mistake. The whole process of seeding to fix bare spots is far easier accomplished at the end of summer going into fall than it is going into the height of summer. Nearly everyone would be well advised to wait roughly 45 more days and start the seeding process then. I'm not exactly doing the smartest thing here on my own parkway strip, even though I'm sure I can make it work out, but I do have a long history of trying to do things the hard way for the purpose of learning and documenting. For those of you who are new to lawn care, I'd love to share with you the many mistakes that people make out in the lawn year in and year out. But I'm not going to do it in this video. If you got a few extra minutes to kill, then please watch this video up here in the corner. It's going to teach you how to mess things up in the lawn before you actually make the bad decisions. Getting back to seeding new grass, I've answered many questions about seeding new grass here on this channel. I'll link to many of the videos on seeding grass, the FAQs surrounding those, down in the description below.